Fantastic. Well, welcome to 1 Million Cups. Once again, I'm Eric. I will be your host today. We have Valerie here today. She's going to give us a great CPA vision of her business. So here we go. Anyways, if you want to find out who we are and what we're about, I highly recommend you go to our link tree. Dan has already posted all of our important links in the chat, so you can grab them there. And that way you can be connected to your Seattle 1 Million Cups community anytime you need to. So like we were saying, this link tree is our one-stop shop. If you want to just have one link to know where to get us, this is the one. So what's going to happen here today is something different. And what we're about is sharing and building and supporting each other as we try to create a new business or a new idea or a new product in our world. And the whole goal is that if we can create a community to do this, we might do it while drinking coffee, because a lot of people drink coffee, or some other sort of beverage with caffeine in it, because we need the energy and the Zoom to go. So that's what we're about here. We like to make sure that we're supporting each other and build that community that really gets people started each week on Wednesday mornings. We're different than other entrepreneurial groups because we're not about pitching for you to get money. We're not about you trying to connect not networking, but to connect with people who might be a resource or might be a friend, might be a mentor. And this is really a community run thing. All of the people who are doing things behind the scenes to make the 1MC Seattle community work are volunteers. But we stand by, and I think this is the most important thing about us, we're radically and intentionally inclusive. You don't have to have a traditional idea. You don't have to have that normal product. You don't have to have something that other people would say, that's not a business. We would say, let's give it a try. Let's see if it's a business. Let's help you find out if it's a business. Let's get you started. So we love the idea of you having an idea and wanting to share it. So please be in contact if you want to be the next person to be included. All right, so this happens all across the country, a lot of different communities. I'm sure this slide needs to be updated, but I tell you what, a lot of people have gone through and given their presentations to start off their businesses. I'm one of those, okay? And every time we have one of these, we're seeking to try to get a combination of education, presentation, and connections going at all times. Next week, we're gonna have an education one that's strictly that, but every week you're gonna learn something, you're gonna see a presentation, and hopefully you'll connect with someone and get an idea or someone who you feel like you can bounce and connect with. In the past, we've done this at the Collective in SLU, and this is what it looks like when it's an in-person. Let's hope that that happens sometime in the next 6 months. But over 8,000 entrepreneurs have done a 1 Million Cups presentation since its inception. And that's a fantastic number. That's a lot of companies that have made a start here. And we couldn't do this, by the way, without some help from some community sponsors. Human Up, Method Customization, and McLaughlin Method all support us by sponsoring some of our behind the scenes software that helps us do our organizer jobs. So thanks to them, yay. Okay, so we do have a really great team of volunteers, and we're always looking for more. So this is the group that we currently have. We would love to see you if you have an idea about something you might want to do to like spark some kind of new energy into our group. Please join us. In a few weeks, unfortunately, I have to just do a behind the scenes takeoff, and I won't be at the meetings due to a job I'll be having. But so there'll be an opportunity for more people to hop on and take over some of the things that I've been doing. So, hey, if you're interested, we'd love to hear from you. So today we're going to have some coffee and conversation. That's kind of what we've been doing. There's going to be a 6-minute presentation, and after that, we'll have 20 minutes Q&A. So after the Q&A, we'll have a little bit of a breakout room time. That's a lot of fun. That's our patented good time at the very end to make those connections really happen. That being said, I want you to be a supportive listener today. I want you to kind of limit your distractions. I want you to think about what stands out, what during the conversation, during the presentation and the conversation that happens after, do you want to learn more about? And do you have an expertise that you can input that might really help guide a good question, help our presenter, or help answer some of the questions that have come up. And one thing that we really ask is that you don't kind of dictate what someone should be doing. Don't use the should. Instead, make it a question. What do you think about? How could this help? Is there another way to look at these things? Instead of the should, make it a question where you're, I guess, guiding the person to think about something, but not telling them what to think. So there you have it. If you can do all that, we're going to have a great Q&A after this fantastic presentation by Valerie. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'm going to hand it all over to Valerie Moseley. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you. All right. Y'all can see that? Yes? Okay, cool. Great. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm Valerie Moseley, CPA, and I am the VM of VMCPA, a tax consultancy. So you might ask yourself, what is a tax consultancy? And it is a tax practice, but it is focused on consulting, guidance, answering questions, helping people with tax planning issues, and very much de-emphasizes the tax preparation side of taxes. So what I like to say is VMCPA is a tax consultancy focusing on helping businesses and their owners through pivot points in their life cycle, anywhere from startup to exit, dealing with all of that, plus all the pesky surprises in between. And I like to think that I have developed a reputation for really clear and thoughtful and thorough guidance for my clients, all the way from that, freelancer phase to the seasoned business team. And I like to think that I am known for being also friendly and easy to talk to, even through highly technical issues. And I really like to break it all down and get it so that the client just goes, oh, got it. And the result, I hope, is that clients will be armed with the knowledge that they need to feel really confident about the decisions they're making, so that they can drive their business forward, knowing that the tax stuff is settled and good. So what drives me? You might ask, what is the point behind VMCPA? And, I worked for years and years and years in traditional hectic tax practices. And I've seen countless times my colleagues and we would just be so focused on those deadlines that we just didn't have enough time or energy to provide in-depth advice for our business owners. Those questions would just stack up, and we just, would wait till the deadline, and then we'd burn out from the deadline, and then, months would go by. And that's just not the way that business owners get their questions answered. So what I did is I flipped the script and I said, let's start with the consulting. Let's start with the getting the questions answered. Let's get that guidance. Let's get that education going. And then if a tax return comes along for the ride, okay. So I actually sold my traditional tax practice a few years ago so that I could pursue my passion of nerding out, getting into the weeds with folks and really solving their problems. So the way I thought I'd kind of structure this for you is to share with you kind of the 4 different kind of buckets of clients that I have, and give you a few examples of a few of them along that business cycle, so you can get an idea of kind of a few of the kind of customer stories. So the first type are the DIY taxpayer. Maybe somebody who's just starting out, their business is not complex enough yet to actually, they could just be using TurboTax or whatever. So they just need some questions answered. I also work with clients who have their own tax preparers. This is the bulk of the VMCPA clients. These are ones that, for whatever reason, their tax preparer is not able to answer their questions or guide them through a transition or a moment in their life cycle. And so I step in to help out. I also do have a handful of full service clients. So that's kind of soup to nuts throughout the year. We're meeting quarterly and hanging out together so that they're really well positioned for tax season. And I do prepare the tax return, but it ends up almost being kind of just a side note, just kind of a box we have to check. And then last, I actually have clients who are fellow CPAs or enrolled agents, other tax professionals who don't have the time or energy or expertise to handle an issue with one of their existing clients. So let's walk through a few examples. First, let's take a classic DIY taxpayer, a freelance writer. So they might be on their own for the first time, and then they come to me, maybe 1 or 2 Zoom sessions, and we walk through their filing obligations and how they might be budgeting for taxes. Maybe we'll talk about some, how they might handle their accounting. And by the end of that, they might walk away with a chart that's customized to them of what they need to be paying attention to. And then I hope the result is that they've not only gone from confusion to confidence, but also they don't even know what they didn't know before. So now they know, and then they can plan. And then, I might see them again later down the line. So I would consider this like a startup, somebody who's in the startup part of the cycle. Another example is somebody who has a tax preparer, but for whatever reason, that tax preparer, answering questions isn't in their business model, or that tax preparer lacks the time, very common in the tax world, or maybe just doesn't have the skill or technical knowledge to help in this case. So there's an interesting challenge I had recently. I would call this company in their growth phase. They were growing, but they needed investment to go to the next level. And they actually had a shot at attracting kind of a big time investor, but they knew they were kind of amateur level where they were right now. So we took some time to formalize their family loans and equity positions that were kind of just, they were barely written down. And so we formalized them and really got them square. And I'm not going to write that contract for them. That's what the attorney's for, but I'm there to help them understand the tax pieces of those puzzles and, with the differences between a loan and a equity investor and what that's going to mean for them and for their business. So by the end of that engagement, which involved several Zoom sessions and emails and consultation with their attorney, we got them ready to handle that investor with the big time influx of cash. I mentioned I also have full service clients. So an example of one is I would call these folks in the mature phase of the cycle. They're a manufacturing company, and our goal throughout the year is for them to maintain their best tax position. So I'm working with them if a new tax law comes up, or maybe it's time to add on some employee benefits. They want to make sure we're fully taking advantage of all the tax credits, and then I'll do quarterly tax projections for them. And like I said here, the result is the tax season is a breeze. And in fact, for some of my existing full service clients, actually even go beyond tax with them, and we do some business planning and internal reporting and kind of management discussions as well. As I mentioned, there's a fourth type of client, and I actually have 2 examples here to kind of hit the different cycles of the life cycle of a business. So I had a CPA come to me with an auto repair client, and they were doing really well. Surprisingly, I guess, I don't know, during the pandemic, I'm not sure if that's surprising or not, but anyway, they were doing really well. And my client, the fellow CPA who has a normal busy tax practice, she did not have the skills to do the entity type planning and how to figure out how to structure that investment, how to figure out the new physical spaces and what they're going to do. So we actually, in this case, we hammered it out in 1 Zoom session, the 3 of us, the client, the CPA, and me. And the client walked away with fresh ideas about how to handle the counter proposal to the potential investor. And so I was helping, we would say this is in the expansion phase of an example of an expansion phase engagement. And then here's an example of an exit. So I had another CPA who came to me, and I actually did not interact with that client. The client didn't know I existed, but the CPA needed me to kind of whisper in her ear. And we had a complex contract. Dentist was trying to sell out to a dental conglomerate. And so I went through that contract for that CPA and figured out all the technical issues, and then advised her on how she should talk to her client so that we make sure that the contract really maintained those tax deferral pieces. And the result of that, when I got an email back, "You saved my bacon." because she didn't have the time or expertise to work through that contract. So as a reminder, or just kind of a summary, VMCPA's clients are for-profit businesses and their owners somewhere in a life cycle transition who really value that in-depth advice and really want that hand-holding through a big transition in their life cycle, or other tax professionals who need a boost. So that's it. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to hearing your feedback. And if you want to reach me, there is my website.
Outstanding. Thanks. Everybody. So if you want to ask a question, there is a thing called the reactions tab. If you click on that, it will give you the opportunity to raise your hand. I already see a few hands raised and a few little celebratory reactions. So the way it's going to go is the hands will come up in an order for me so that I can easily select who's next. And our first is Katie.
Yay, Valerie. Oh my gosh. I am so glad to be able to celebrate you today. I feel like so Valerie and I know each other. We've had other conversations. Valerie also went through coaching with me, and I feel like I learned brand new things today about you and your business that I didn't know. And so I just want to really applaud you for like the quality of your presentation. I thought it was really clear and engaging. And I think there was a lot of great commentary happening in the chat. So feel free to like scan that when you get a chance, or, download it for later, because there's a lot of just positive energy there. And I actually just wanted selfishly, I wanted you to share what your experience was like making some of those changes and edits to your presentation for the rest of the group to kind of share. Because part of what happens behind the scenes before Valerie gets to this point, or any presenter, is that's part of the education part of 1MC. So I'm just curious if you could share a little bit about your experience there, Valerie.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny because I started, when I built the presentation, you hear all the time when you talk about the store, when you talk about your business, people want to hear the customer journey, the story, the transformation, like the thing you're going to do for them. And so I started out with like a zillion page or zillion slide presentation with like all these customer stories. And then I thought, that's too much. That's not going to work. And I'm too verbose. And so then I went over to like, okay, let's just talk about the different ways that people come to you. And then anyway, long story short, in the end, I ended up kind of blending them together, and I think maybe it worked. So yeah, no, your feedback was very helpful, Katie. And especially you reminded me to tell people kind of like what it was going to be like for them, what it would be like to engage. And that was a really helpful little. So, yeah.
Outstanding. Yeah, I think you're gonna hear a lot of positives from people. So just be ready for that, Valerie. I know it's tough to take sometimes, but Leif, you're up next, sir.
Hi, good morning, Valerie. Great presentation. I liked your visuals. I'm very focused on that kind of thing, and very nice and clean aesthetic. I had a question, actually I have two questions, but I'll save one for later. Is if you're a business, and you're thinking about needing these services, how do you know you're in a life cycle transition?
Yeah, that is a great question. Yeah, and that is a great question, because I think I'm framing it that way as a shorthand for talking about it, but that may not be how businesses are thinking about it. They might think, oh, I'm in a life cycle transition. They might just think, I have a problem, I have a question, I need it solved. And so actually there was a version of this presentation where it was all questions. It was questions that a client might ask. And so your question is good feedback for me, because that's probably how most people actually think of it, as opposed to thinking, I'm in the growth phase now, and I need support through that. So yeah,
I think it would be like, okay, retroactively you could see you were in that phase or something like that, but the reality is it's like a Tuesday and an email comes in and you're like, oh crap, and like the problem, right? So it's just interesting to think about that. It makes sense from your perspective, because you could see it easily from the outside as where someone is at. But I'm just wondering like what kind of triggers I can have to, in my business, be able to step out for a second and be like, oh, is something changing that I should be aware of?
Yeah. I actually even thought about saying something like, every time you go, uh-oh, or every time you go, oh crap, we need to deal with this, that's when you call me.
Yeah, fair enough. Great. Well, thanks, Valerie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sure that Valerie doesn't mean, uh-oh, there's a leak in the roof to call Valerie. So keep in mind, uh-oh, about those kind of things. Julia, how about you? What do you have to say?
Yes. The presentation definitely asked one of my big questions, which was, can you give me some examples of problems that you're solving for your clients? I think that was like the big thing for me, and that was answered. But I have another question on top of that. So I'm curious if you specialize in certain industries mainly, or your clients are, I don't know, across all industries, or I don't know if there are any trends in that particular area.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I've always struggled answering that question, to be honest. Because the way I don't want to be negative, and yet the truth is that what I do is exclude some industries, and then other ones, anybody else is welcome to come. So I definitely, work with service-based businesses, small manufacturing, some restaurants and bars, that kind of thing. And then, like I was saying before we started, there's a few fields where I do not have a specialty. So for example, like we just talked about, cannabis is one. There's a specialty for like car dealerships that I am not familiar with. And then, I have a client who has a big foreign issue, and I outsource all of that. So, I'm struggling. Maybe you guys can give me a hint, because I don't know how to say, like, everybody come except you guys. Like, that sounds really negative and unpleasant to me. So, yeah, the small manufacturing and service businesses are primarily my clients.
Okay, that's fair. And what does VM stand for? VMCPA.
Yeah, that's me.
What's a VM?
Valerie Moseley.
Oh, because I'm VM.
Yes. Yeah, and I chose that primarily because, I think some people who present at 1 Million Cups, they're looking to start something and really grow it beyond themselves. They're really entrepreneurs in that sense. They want to build it out. And I already had that business. So my goal is I'm not trying to pretend I'm anybody else but me. I don't want to have employees. I don't want to grow this thing beyond. I just really want to be me helping my clients.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Okay, thank you.
So Valerie, you asked about the how you can handle it. You may want everyone to come to you, and then what you can do is be that part of the community that passes along those you can't help, and you get well known for that. There's a great book out there called the Go Giver, I think it's called, and it talks about that. So, anyways, yeah, that may be one of your superpower is to help everyone find the right CPA help for themselves. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I do have a really nice network of tax professionals in my universe. So I definitely do pass people along for sure. Yeah.
Because
that's
I feel
cool,
like tax.
Oh, go ahead, Lily.
Yeah. No, because I feel like tax for a business owner can be like this huge black box. Like, you don't really know. I mean, especially the more complex your business gets, you're like, what is this? Like, I don't have time for this. So you definitely need somebody to take care of it. But there are so many different, things that can come up. So, it can be a challenge figuring out who is that CPA or that tax consultant who can help you with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's
yeah, for sure.
That's outstanding. I completely agree, and love this. That's a great question, Julia. Jenny, you have a question.
Hello. Okay, so Valerie, I know I'm going to just heap this on you. I just absolutely love the way that you did put those examples in there as to what you do, because that's how I learn. If I have to sit through another presentation or hear like align, leverage, all this stuff, that's like, but how does it relate to me? So that was just really fantastic. But it leads me to a specific question, I know you mentioned one example where you had somebody who had a big investor interested in joining them, but they had to kind of retrofit all of the other commitments that they had made to now look a little more legit, for lack of a better word. So that really piqued my interest as somebody obviously who's starting to build an empire. Eventually the money's just going to start rolling in, right? And so from the get-go, from where I am right now, I really would love to just, anybody who's interested in either loans or investments, I get, on the up and up initially. So do you do services that are also like somebody like myself could retain you? So
Yeah.
like from the get-go, because I really don't want to be scrambling going, oh, now I have a problem and I look like a hack because I took Aunt whoever's money and didn't wrote it on the back of a napkin.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. I toyed a lot with like what my example would be for the startup person, and I went really basic with the freelance person, but a lot of my startup phase people are just like that, where they're like, okay, we're the tech startup and we're going to be, we see that we're going to, 5 years from now is our IPO. And, 1 year from now is like getting our initial little thing going. And then we're getting our little families and their seed money and our blah, blah, blah. And so, we can put that together. I just always give the highlight that in those situations, you definitely want to do some entity selection planning along with that. So are you a C Corp? Are you an S Corp? Are you a partnership? Blah, blah, blah. That's always an important issue. And then the second thing is at that stage with that level of question, it should be you, your accountant, and your attorney all working together. Because the accountants are not allowed to write contracts. We can't draft your legal documents. So you need that person as well as the accountants all together. So, but yes, I dig that kind of work.
Well, it takes a village, I guess, to to raise a business. So that's great. Yeah. And I always consider it, sorry to ramble on, but I always consider it like money so well invested. People look at it and like, oh, how could you? I need these teams. I need my babysitters, the ones that are going to take care of my baby, my business, and who know more than I do. And so I think your service is also really wonderful because you get to know the individual businesses, and again, and talk to the CPA who might be just, filling out the forms, but keep their best interest at heart. So yeah, fantastic service. So I'm excited to get to know you more professionally than I have personally. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just say a side note, you were saying, I'm pointing to you, our host, that, I have referrals for other CPAs. I also have a network of attorneys, financial planners, business advisors, other folks like that too. So when that stuff comes up, I can connect people if needed.
Really fantastic. Thanks, Valerie.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Valerie. So what's interesting is you talked right there, and that there was a great little discussion about needing to have yourself, your attorney, your tax person. In a few weeks, we're going to have someone on to do a presentation, an education presentation about another facet that everyone needs to think about, and that is your insurance obligations. So you might want to think about those. So I really recommend in 2 weeks, we got that coming up. So that'll be another great learning experience where we can learn what do we have to have in terms of insurance as our business grows. It's complicated, this world of business, and that's why we need people like Valerie. I enjoyed the presentation a lot, and what I liked was the simple, these motifs you gave us of here's a person, here's how I went through things. In terms of that very simple, you said like the freelance writer, a lot of us are at, I think, a stage like that when we come to 1 million cups. If you had one piece of advice for them, how would you ask them to start their tax thought process? When should they do it? What should they do? Whatever you think, the first thing that comes to your mind, what is that?
I had two competing thoughts. So one is, this is just so basic, but get a separate bank account for your business, because you need to behave like it's a business. So even if it's just like, you're like, this is my little thing, this is just how I make money. But when you're running a business, you're not an employee, so you need to behave like a business. So you need a separate bank account and everything flows through there. And then the second thing, and that is, I mean, if you forced me to say just one thing, I would say that's the one thing, because that'll be your source for all your information. The second thing is learn about what self-employment tax is and budget for it. I don't know how many times I've seen people get clobbered by self-employment tax because they just only know what income tax is. And self-employment tax is basically the self-employed person, the freelance person's version of payroll taxes. And so when you're an employee, you have to pay payroll taxes. And so when you're self-employed, you have to pay self-employment taxes. And a lot of people get surprised by that when they're just starting out.
I am one of those people. A couple of years ago, I didn't even think about it, but I was on a 1099. And at the end of the year, I hadn't been paying those quarterlies, and I just got boop. It was probably an extra $4,000 at the end of the year because I hadn't done it with my quarterly taxes. So if I'd only known you then,
Oh, I know. That just popped into my head. Actually, you said quarterlies, and I like everybody during the pandemic, I needed to entertain myself. So I actually started a VMCPA YouTube channel. It only has 4 videos on it, but one of them is about quarterly estimated tax payments. So if you want to plop VMCPA into your YouTube search, you can find a little video on how to do your quarterly estimates.
That's awesome. So Valerie, the other thought that I had in my mind was, as you were going through all these, which do you find to be the most fulfilling for you? Which is your bread and butter that makes your heart race a little bit and you get excited to do? Which of the what kind of person are you looking for? Are you looking for somebody who's doing that pivot? Are you looking for, or do you like to help that person at the very beginning? What's your personal favorite?
I do like the more complex ones. I find those to be really satisfying because they can, I feel like they can really, well, I love to nerd out. As I didn't get to slip this in, but Katie, when we were practicing, she said, "You kind of like puzzles, don't you?" And I love to solve puzzles. I love to like figure it all out and then distill it down and then have a conversation with the client so that they can understand what's going on. So the kind of juicier the puzzle, the more fun it is for me. That said, like sitting down for an hour on a Zoom and just like walking through somebody's questions where I don't have to prepare a whole lot or think a whole lot because I just know the material, that's also fun. But like for instance, other CPAs come to me just so I can like get into my research tool and like find the tax code and the regulations and the court cases that are all related to the thing. Like that's really fun too. But so anyway, I think those transition moments for a client that's a business that's already in it or wants to get into it, that's to me where the fun really is.
So my takeaway from that is you are a CPA storyteller. You want to tell the story to help solve the problem of a very challenging puzzle. It's like, that's awesome. That's very cool. Very cool. And I know what you mean when you say, sometimes I love those brain dead moments where you can just go and just walk in and do it. When I tutor people for chemistry after 20 years of teaching at college, it's like, do I need to tell you what topic it is? No. I can just do it. So we're good. So anyways, Jesse has a question for you.
Well, thank you, Eric. And hello, Valerie. So I have several questions. So I'm going to ask them all, and some of them are more to think about, and some you can answer because it's a little bit of a combination. So one, as a CPA, I do have people ask all the time, and curiosity is that, are you able to work outside of Seattle? Are your services able to work in different states?
Yeah.
Second question, and I like the question about the life cycle transition. But when I hear life cycle transition, I think of like life and transitioning. I don't hear business. And I wanted to know what that means to you and to businesses. Is what is a life cycle transition? A third was, are you following and know anything about qualified small business stocks? It's a big trend, especially for startups. But then this leads to the fourth question, because you mentioned you work with startups, but startups is a wide range. You have seed companies that somebody's just thinking of an idea, to you have a company that's raising 50, 60, $80 million at a time. So who is a startup client for you?
Okay. All right, I jotted those down. So able to work outside of Seattle, definitely. I can work across Washington State. I also have clients in other states. Yeah, like for instance, a couple that's building out an Airbnb in Idaho right now. So legally we're allowed to work anywhere. There's like cross CPAs. Basically all states have reciprocal agreements, so we can do that for the most part. But sometimes there are local laws that we don't know what we don't know about, and so we have to either dig in or just say, that's not my area of specialties. So sometimes you'll actually have you'll have clients say, well, my CPA said they weren't allowed to work with me anymore because, we moved. And often that's a little bit of a fib, because they just don't want, they don't want to be your client anymore, because either because it was a convenient way to let you go as a client because there was some other thing going on, or more likely that they're like, you know what, New York is a big fat hassle. I don't want any New York clients because New York is a quagmire. So I'm just going to say I can't work with them because it's just too much. So sometimes I do that because it's like, California is also another state that's like, ugh, there's a lot going on in California. So sometimes they come to me and they're like, we're opening 50 stores across California. And I'm going, let me find you a California CPA. So I'm going to skip your second question for now. Am I following qualified small business stock? Indeed, definitely. Code section 1245, code section 12202. So yes. And what does a startup mean to me? If they're looking for 50 million in money right now, they're probably outside of my size. So I am often working with clients who, they would be in their early stages ready for, up 5, 10, 20 million. But if we're starting out the gate at 50 or 60, they're probably going to get outside of my size pretty quickly. And then I'm going to be referring them up to another, like a regional size firm. So your life cycle transition question, I think I don't entirely understand it, but I think what you're asking is, does the life cycle, or the way I'm going to interpret your question is, can we also think of that as like different phases of somebody's life as opposed to their business? And indeed that happens. I get clients, I recently consulted with clients who they came to me because they thought it was a business question. They said, we have a property inside of an LLC. And what do we do about it? And as I dug and dug and dug, I realized actually this is a divorce issue. And so I was able to help them use the tax laws related to divorce to completely avoid any tax upon the division of the property between the two people who were splitting up. So yes, definitely. Or I get people who come to me and they're like, hey, we're thinking we've got retirement in our minds over the next 5, 10 years. So we want to, like, for example, build out this Airbnb in Idaho because we want to eventually move there. So businesses and lives are highly intertwined for sure. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Great questions.
That was fantastic. I think that at this time, we don't have any more questions that are floating. I think it's a great time.
I do have a
Oh,
couple
you
of
do?
questions.
I see it. Louis, throw it. I missed your hand there. Throw us one.
So, Valerie, how do you typically acquire new clients, and how can this audience assist in that process? That's number one. Number two, what are the 3 key things that you want everyone to remember about your business as we go out there in the world? And, because we know people, what do we need to remember about your business? 3 things.
Okay. Those are great questions. Wow. So how do I typically acquire clients? It's referrals primarily. Okay. I also do presentations occasionally, and I really enjoy. I used to have a former life as a performer, so I like to perform by giving educational presentations, and get to scratch that itch. That might be why I started that YouTube channel. yeah, but primarily referrals. So I love, yeah, talking to people, other business people, other accountants, other lawyers, that sort of thing. So word of mouth. Although I actually had a client recently who, like, she did a search engine, basic search for, and I popped up, but then she actually remembered that she knew me from tap dance lessons like 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And she's like, is that the same Valerie Moseley? Oh, okay. So search engine worked, but then the deal closed by us knowing each other from tap dancing. So 3 key things. So one thing is, I get a lot of referrals where people say they come to me and they're like, oh, I have this question, but also what I really need is like year in, year out tax preparation services. So the thing to remember, and again, I don't like to talk in negatives, but that VMCPA is not a traditional tax practice. So most of my time is spent consulting with people, almost like you think of like your lawyer. You go to your lawyer, you get your questions answered, you get like an issue resolved. So I do a few tax returns, maybe in our consultation, yes, a business advisor. So through our consultation, we realized, oh, okay, we got to fix an old year return. Or you have I had a client this year who sold a $6 million stake in his S corporation. So this was an extraordinary year for him. So this was the year I prepared his tax return because I was consulting with him and already had all the materials and information. So, but I think one of the things to say to people is, I can prepare tax returns. I've done it for years, but this is a consulting practice primarily. So that's number one. Number 2 is, none of you guys have asked me about pricing or anything like that, but I'll just say that over the years, I have played around with like packages or deals, or not deals, but like try to give people predictions of how much things are going to cost. But I don't do that anymore. And now, again, you think of me like your attorney. So it's just by the hour and we work together. I can, maybe give you an idea of how many hours it would take, but it's just a by the hour deal. So it's not like one of these like, pay, $2,000 and then this is what you get, like, because it's always, every time I dive in, I feel like it's a completely unique situation, and I can pull from my past experience and my ability to research and apply that law to their situation, but it's unique every time. And the third thing is that
Valerie, before you get into this one kind of is part of our big question for you, which is, I'd like to go there if you don't mind, so we can kind of mold Lulia's question with what you're going to say. And I will share the screen and get us there. And there you go. So the question is, what can the 1 Million Cups community do for you? Now, it's not 100% what Lulia asked. She asked, how can we help you get clients? But is there something else that you want from us in addition to that? So help us out. Help us help you.
Yeah, thanks. I actually thought about this a little bit, and I thought I might ask you guys if you would be interested in connecting me with folks who want one of those educational presentations that I mentioned. So I have a few topics like, top 10 tax mistakes, or, I can give anywhere from a 45-minute to 2-hour like tax basics presentation, or, a Washington State B&O tax education, or, the one that I see all the time is the classic question, should I be an S corporation? So I can give a talk on that. And I have a few other topics. So I love to, it's a win-win, I hope, because people will walk away learning something, and then I get to scratch my presentation itch, my love of performing. So thank you. That would be my ask, if anyone knows of any groups or folks who want a presentation.
That's fantastic. And I love that ask. That's great. Well, folks, we are not completely done yet. We're still wondering about you in the audience. How many of you have an idea or a thought or a business that you're starting that you might want to present? And so if you are interested, please apply at 1millioncups.com/Seattle And you can do this for a myriad of reasons. You don't have to have a full-fledged business, it could just be an idea. So yeah, please, if you're interested, apply. And then if we find that you want to give a presentation, we'll get you scheduled. Also, if you're interested in being part of our organization team, our volunteer team, once again, hit us up at seattle1millioncups.com with an email, and we will chat with you, and we'd love to have you get involved. Of course, you can find all these links at our link tree. We really are pushing this link tree because it's awesome. It's so much fun. It's a one-stop shop for you to get all of your communications with the 1MC Seattle team. Next week, we're having a teacup conversation. This is our little patented or non-patented idea of we're gonna have a business idea, a question, and then a whole bunch of breakout rooms where we go and look and discover what people think about answers and solutions and even problems within these questions. So join us. It's a lot of fun and it's very energetic because it's fast paced and we're moving back and forth. So it's a different kind of presentation. There won't be a particular person. It'll just be our team giving out a question and asking everyone, hey, what do you think? Well, now we're about getting ready for breakout rooms. Dan, how's that coming along? You getting set?
Sure, yeah, we're good to go.
We're good to go. So here's how the breakout rooms will work, folks. We are just going to go into these rooms. You're going to be chatting with people, having a good time. However, you are not stuck there. These are not like assigned rooms for the duration. These are really just for you to go have a good time and connect with somebody and some people. So you have a free pass to leave when you need. We know you have other parts of your life to get to. So thank you so much for being here today. And I would have to say goodbye. And once again, thanks for being here. And I hope to see you in a breakout room. Have a great week. Bye, everyone.